Thank you very much, everybody. So what we wanted to look at briefly was the way in which, when we've been developing the Future Teacher project, we'll say more about that in a moment, but when we've been developing it over the last 3 years or so, we've been actively trying to model good practice in the way we've been putting together all the webinars that we've been creating there. So there may be tips that people can benefit from, because we've had to go through a lot of iterative processes. So I want to have a look with Ron and with Lilian at what we've done, how we've done it. And first thing to say is this is not a slideshow. We'll give you the link to this in a minute. We deliver all our Future Teacher sessions using Xerte toolkits, which means that instantly, right at the beginning, we can give people the link. They can then be working with us. They can be going from slide to slide. They can be filling in the embedded activities and so on. And this slideshow has been put together, this Xerte resource that we give you the link to has been put together from lots of others. So there's links that will take you to other Future Teacher sessions, and it's really lots of rabbit holes, mines of hidden treasure. These are the three of us, and you can find out more about that at your leisure. And these are the topics that we've covered so far over the 19, I think, Future Teacher sessions. They're all recorded. They all have interactive resources alongside them. So what have our main processes been? The first thing that we've done is we've made sure that we know the audience from the beginning, and we've made sure that it's learner-led. So every session, while we're planning it, the registration forms asking people what they want to get from the session's theme. It's also about anticipating needs. So we specifically ask people what access needs they might have, so we can adapt what we do, or we can work with any individuals that identify a particular need. And we've got questions and comments if they have other things that they just want to ask. Will it be recorded? Can lots of us come? All those sorts of things. And these are all free sessions. Building community is really important, and we do this in really simple ways. We don't wait till the last minute and then let everybody in. We deliberately make the decision to let anybody enter whenever they're ready, and if we're still setting up, that's fine. They talk to us, or we say, just hold on a minute, we're still working out who's doing which slides. It's about humanity. It's about humanizing the online experience. We ask people, we give people the chance to join in. If we're ready 10 minutes beforehand, we have these water cooler conversations about the weather, about gardening, about whatever we're interested in. We invite people to stay at the end to be able to carry on the conversations if they want, and we keep all the chat panes open at all stages so people can share things with one another. Now that's not necessarily different from what a lot of other people would do, but we also try to model good practice literally, because we build our sessions based around different models, and we encourage our participants to look at these different models. So as we're going through the models, they can see how we're actually applying these models to our own work, and we even adapt some of them. The ARCS model we've adapted to the SCARY model, and again you can link to each of the teaching resources that has all of those in. Differentiation is vitally important, because we attract people from really talented people who are part of the alt list through to people working in adult community learning or college settings who perhaps have very little background skill. And so we make sure that there's references and resources at each stage, and these are all differentiated. So you can have your basic information, your advanced information, your sector specific. We do it different ways, different sessions, but that doesn't matter. We've always got a mind map, because for some people the mind map is a route for them to be able to say, actually, I don't want all of that. I just want to know this little bit here, and then they can zoom in on that. There's a built-in table of contents to every Xerte learning object. It's probably easier to show that on a different page. Here's the built-in table of contents coming up. And inclusion is vitally important. So, for example, we have our planned inclusion. So every one of those 19 sessions has a page about inclusive practice in relation to that topic. We have our regular inclusion bits. We talked about the invitation, identifying needs. We talked about the mind map. They're all recorded so people can focus not on note taking, but on listening and understanding and go back if they need. And there's inclusion built into Xerte toolkits as a tool. It has an automatic options that are built into it. If you've not come across Xerte, it's free and open source. You can right click and on Edge or with Google plugins, read text to speech on any of the text. Our accessibility has evolved. We've gone from Vimeo to YouTube in order to improve auto captioning. We've gone from Zoom without auto captions to now a version of Zoom where we have got it. We try the inclusion to be as pragmatic as possible. We're not about aspirations, we're about things that you can do as actions. We try to engage by embedding all sorts of things. So again, loads of good practice that we've seen demonstrated lots of times today. What we try to do is pull all of those things together in each session. And we've refreshed it. The funding for this European project ended in 2018. We've been continuing to refresh it by going through the whole series again, just as a sort of fun service to the community. More flipped, more focused on activities, more rooted in real experiences with new practitioners coming and doing case studies. And it's every month. And Lilian's going to talk about the impact it's had for her.
Yeah, and you don't mind clicking away for me, do you, Alistair?
Click away for you.
So this is like a case study of how an institution can engage with future teachers. All very well telling you about it, but how can you engage and how can your staff engage? So I've used a provocative title using following our ARCS model, which was a kind of using humor to kind of draw you in, getting rich with future teacher, not financially, unfortunately, but rich in other ways. So first, it creates this rich resource base for us. I have this box set of tools, a phrase coined by Ron, that I can draw on as an educational advisor at the uni, no matter what the question is that's asked by colleagues. So secondly, the wisdom of crowds. If you click on the picture, Alistair, I can't possibly create this entire box set on my own, right? And even if I did, I can draw on the perspectives of Alistair, Ron, and all the participants. You know, they all feed into the resources that we create here. So third, it's inclusive and accessible, as Alistair mentioned. All the content has inclusivity and accessibility weaved into model good practice. If someone wants to know how something can be done in more accessible ways, we have examples built into that. So fourth, it overcomes the not invented here syndrome. And I don't know how many of you get this from colleagues. With the Future Teacher series, I can direct them to this bank of resources. And it's not far for them to go from our Uni of York examples to the next page to see what others have done. Okay. Next, developing staff and relationships at the same time. If you click on the picture, Alistair, every time I draw a member of staff in to do the webinar, it's a form of staff development for them. And I build up good relationships with the member of staff who I'm working with. Okay, so this is Dave Beer, who I got to know as a result of doing the Future Teacher series. Then there's community building, which Alistair's already mentioned. You get this regulars, these people at the university who are part of this crowd of people who present at the Future Teacher series. And finally, the university just becomes rich with experts. So there's only 3 educational advisors like myself at the Uni of York, but there's so many colleagues who have expertise that I can draw on. If someone's starting out, I can direct them to someone else who's more experienced. So what sets this Future Teacher series apart is this box set of resources that you can easily embed wherever you want. So you can give your academics resources at the point of need, and it can live in your own VLE, and you can link to our playlist of webinar recordings wherever you need it, whether you're using Teams or Zoom or Collaborate, and whatever your VLE is, Moodle or Blackboard, etc., or Canvas. So it's much easier to get to than a lot of other resources out there, and it's free in OER. So I highly recommend that you consider being an agent at your institution and drawing people in to participate in webinars like the Kent one, but also like the Future Teacher one. And Ron will tell you more about that.
A future teacher agent, Lilian, eh? So we have some basic stats, but basically the idea is lots of topics, lots of journeys, which are our mini courses, lots of webinar recordings and webinars still to come, lots of views and lots of recordings. Let's move on to the next one. This is all based on the Digicomp Edu framework, which isn't just a UK framework, it's a European framework that our partners use in the project, but obviously there's lots of overlap, and you will see direct mappings to whatever frameworks you currently use. We usually encourage people to join our mailing list because they can reflect and share things there, but also it's where we announce the new talks and new recordings and so on. I think we've already shared this link, and we usually share the link right at the beginning of our presentation so that people can participate and follow along and also address some accessibility issues. So you could use the short URL, the long URL, the QR code if you haven't already got that, and we'll put that in the text chat afterwards as well. And then we usually try and allow time for open mic discussion. So what we'll try and do is do that at the end of this and respond to the questions, and we'll move on just looking at the other. But the one point there is our next webinar is on getting savvy or being savvy with digital tools. Probably the least obvious topic just from the title, but we'd encourage you to sign up for that if you're interested in what you've heard today. We have these journeys, and there's a step-by-step guide, and if you're technically minded, you might want to explore that just because it's a different VLE that isn't so common in the UK. It's a VLE called PEDIT, but lots of journeys, and we also have XAPI enabled and adaptive learning, but we don't really have time to talk about that today. Another slide about us along with our contact details. And then, as Alistair and Lilian have both mentioned, I think we use Xerti for this, which is a free and open source tool. And linking in with some of the topics earlier, the next release, we have a conference coming up. The next release will have the ability to build those kind of 360 interactions direct in this free and open source tool. So that might be worth exploring if you're exploring 360 and so on. We always end with a what one thing. So there's a live text wall in there. You can't do that on Alistair's shared screen, but if you've got the link to the resource, you can reflect on what one thing that we've covered. And obviously this is a very short session. Normally it'd be an hour long just on our webinars, on what one thing you're going to do as an action. So encouraging active research and participation and so on. And then finally, we just added this to kind of demonstrate that with interactions built in, there isn't in our presentation today, but you can add a results page that allows people to download and reflect on the topics they've looked at and the things they've covered and the activities they've completed and so on.
And that's us.
So we have someone saying in the text chat they've been promoting the Future Teacher resources to colleagues for a while. We're always encouraging everybody to do that because there's a rich resource there. We don't always get so much feedback on the pros and cons and the actual results of doing so. I know you do, Lilian, don't you?
You're muted, Lilian.
I was just agreeing with Ron. I was saying, yes, absolutely. That's a problem with having two buttons.
Yes.
I
was going to ask, would it be possible to stick a link in the chat via the announcements for your next webinar, we'd be happy to kind of share that with everyone here today.
Absolutely.
I had one question, if that's okay. We've used Xerte at the University of Kent before as well. How long did it take you to get used to it? Did you find it was kind of easy to use? I mean, you obviously get on with it because you use it.
I have to confess, I'm one of the Xerte developers, and Alistair and Lilian have been involved with Xerte outside of Future Teacher for quite a while as well. What I would say is people often refer to it as a point in time. You know, they looked at it a few years ago. In the world of Xerte and any other authoring tool, things moved on dramatically. So I would suggest looking at it again if you found it kind of complicated or difficult at the time you first looked at it.
The one thing that I've found, because I'm not a developer of any sort and I don't do coding or any of those things, and the thing that I've massively valued over the years, I've used Xerte for all kinds of things, is I can put together quite sophisticated and quite accessible content without having to have any coding skills. I can make accessible drag and drop, for example, multi-choice quizzes, all sorts. So from my perspective, I suppose my main buy-in for me has been it allows me to do things way beyond my skill level because it's template driven. So getting used to the conventions of how it works is like any tool, comes right back to Dominic's points earlier. Should something be aimed, where should it be aimed? If it's intuitive to use right from the word go, then maybe that it's going to have other limitations. So I found it hits a sweet spot for me. I've had to learn a few things, but nothing like having to learn code.
Or learning things, I think, is all part of the fun. We have a question here. So do you need to install Xerte or is it web-based?
It's web-based, but you have to have it running on a web server. You can run it on things like XAMPP. For those that know what that means, you can run a local web server and just use it locally. But the real power and the collaboration and so on comes from using an online install. And as you've seen today, we can create something very quickly and share it publicly just with a click.
Not only that, Ron was trying to move a page right at the last minute because he can. And so it's very adaptable, very agile. And because it's HTML, HTML5 and it's HTML, I think it's in the most accessible format you can possibly create in the first place.
Great, thank you very much. We're slightly over on time, so I think we'll have to stop there. But if you do have any questions for Lilian, Ron or Alistair, please use the chat, or you can send us a message or contact them via the team link to the series, and I'm sure one of them will get back to you.
Our contact details are in that resource that we've shared anyway, so you can do that directly as well.
Brilliant, thanks, Ron. Okay, hi, it's me again. You're probably sick of me by now. I guess we've finished now. It's time to kind of wrap it up. Now, what I would first like to say is thank you so much for all of the speakers that have taken the time to be here today, and for the kind of the crash course in using Teams live events. It's been a little bit stressful trying to get everyone here for this one, and everyone has made time for that to happen. So thank you so much. All of the presentations were first class. And we've had a very kind of active Q&A session running today as well, which I think has been great. So before I finish today, I just want to let you all know that we do have another webinar planned, and that's going to be on the 1st of April. So it's not an April Fool's gag, it is actually a webinar. And the one on the 1st of April is going to be based around what can we learn from distance learning, supporting teaching in the post-COVID-19 world. We do have some great speakers lined up for that one as well. So watch this space. I'll post the agenda as soon as it's ready. So yeah, please watch this space, and we hope to see you there again. Just so you're all aware, we have been recording this session today, and we will break up this session into individual recording links as we usually do, and I will make them available via the team, so you can access any of those links as you wish, and we hope you find those useful. it's been great to have everyone here today, so thank you very much. And I would just like to finish by saying thank you to all of the e-learning team today. Nick and Steve have been helping behind the scenes, as they always do, and we wouldn't be able to run this without their help. So thank you so much, everyone.